So once you have your paper snowflake built in real life and you're happy with the way that it turned out, then we can now move on to OnShape and start modeling your paper snowflake. So you should have already taken an image or a picture of your snowflake template to kind of use for a model. If you haven't already inserted or imported that picture into your OnShape document, make sure you go ahead and do that first before we go and create our sketch. So I'm actually going to now create a new sketch, and I'm going to make this on the front plane just so my snowflake is kind of facing me and standing upright. I think it'll be easier for me to be able to create that and model and trace that. So I'm now going to go up to my toolbar and click Insert Image. I'm going to choose my snowflake template, and then I'm going to draw my image rectangle. Now I'm just going to leave it as is right now, and we'll eventually kind of move it and get it into the position we need. So technically, the image you guys should have taken a picture of, this is only 1/12 of our snowflake. So that's all we're really going to use and trace to create or generate our entire snowflake. So if that's 1/12 of our snowflake, that's technically, 30 degrees out of a 360-degree snowflake. So that's kind of where I'm going to start. I'm going to map out some lines that are have a 30-degree angle between them. So I'm clicking the line tool and the construction tool, and I'm going to start creating a vertical line from the origin up. Now, if we look back to our mini challenge to the Google Doc, it says that our snowflake should be no larger than 5 inches across. So when you create that construction line, I would like you guys to put dimensions on that construction line that are 2.25 inches. Okay, that'll just, help ensure that when you create your snowflake, it's not going to be larger than 5 inches. Anything larger than 5 inches will take up too much space on the print bed or the bed of the laser cutter when we go to cut it out. So now I'm going to create another construction line starting at the origin again and going up, but now I'm going to go up at an angle. And you don't have to dimension that line. In order to make sure that these are 30 degrees from each other, I'm going to click the dimension tool and click both construction lines, and I should be able to get this degree dimension that pops up. I'm going to change that to 30. And that looks good. So now we know that that is exactly 1/12 of our snowflake. Now, kind of notice that this picture is a little bit too big here. So now after we have our construction lines, it definitely looks like my image is a little bit too big. So if you need to shrink your image at all, you can move it accordingly, and you can also shrink it just by dimensioning it. So I'm going to dimension it to 2.25, and let's see kind of how that looks. That looks pretty good. I'm also going to drag and select to select my image, and I'm actually going to transform the image. The reason I'm going to transform it is because I kind of want it to match up with my 1/12 cut out the construction lines that I just created. So I'm going to move it near there, and then I'm going to transform it again. And I'm actually going to change the angle so that the end of our snowflake kind of matches up with my vertical construction line. I'm actually going to angle it back a little bit. I'm just going to deselect my construction lines because I don't want to angle those. Let's try 2 degrees. And that looks pretty good. You can make it a little bit smaller. This is kind of like a guess and check here. You just kind of want your template to match up with the slice that we created. out of our snowflake. All right, so now once it's in position, you can start tracing your snowflake. If I was doing this, I would probably start at the top of this construction line just so you know that everything kind of links together. So you can just use lines, spline tool, any arcs you need to create. I'm assuming that most of your snowflake designs are much more detailed than mine. This is just an example. And you'll notice that when I'm making all my lines, I'm either starting or ending them at the construction line, and you'll kind of see why once we kind of get to the end of this. I'm going to create a line here, and a line here. I'm going to create an arc. So you can either, use any of the tools we've gone over so far to kind of make this as complex as needed. And again, I'm starting and ending all my lines at the construction lines we created in the very beginning. And of course, I'm kind of, going faster so I can show you guys, but, take your time on this. We want it to look nice and neat. Okay, and let me just double check. I think I got all that. All right, if you think you've outlined your entire snowflake template, then you can actually go and remove the image. Just want it out of my view. Good. We should have our 2.25, and that looks good to go. Now, I'm not able to extrude this because technically these are construction lines and my shape is open. So I'm going to click these construction lines we made in the very beginning and deselect the construction tool, and they should be just normal solid lines. And now if I click my snowflake shape, I will be able to extrude it, and that's exactly what we want. What I'm actually going to do is go over here, pull this over, select, and delete, just so it's not crowding my view at all. We still have it down here in our tabs, so I can be able to see what you guys use to create your template. So now I'm going to click on my snowflake design, and I'm going to press extrude. Now we want this to kind of mimic what it will look like in real life. So depending on whether we cut it out of acrylic or cardstock, we'll go ahead and make the depth of this extrude 0.125, just so it's the same across the board, and hit the green check. Now, we have a part generated. This is part 1, and this is 1/12 of our snowflake. If I use the circular pattern tool and tried to create a pattern of my snowflake right now, and I put in my instance count as 12 because this is 1/12 of my snowflake, doesn't look quite right. What we need to do before we create a circular pattern is actually mirror 1/12 of our snowflake to generate 1/6, and then we'll be able to create that circular pattern. So we are going to do a part mirror. So I'm going to choose the mirror tool. The entities I want to mirror is part 1. And my mirror plane is this edge of, or this face of my snowflake right here. When you mirror it, you should still only have one part here. If it generated 2 parts, that means there's a hole somewhere and you need to go back into your sketch and fix it up. I'm going to hit the green check, and now I have 1/6 of my snowflake. Now, when I go and create a circular pattern, create a pattern of part 1, my axis of pattern is just the very bottom point or line of my snowflake. I change my instance count from 4 to 6 because this is 1/6 of my snowflake. And OnShape's working really hard right now. Not 46, 6. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so now I have my 6-pointed snowflake. Hopefully, whatever is created after your circular pattern looks identical to what you have sitting in front of you in real life. Now I'm going to hit the green check, And you should have 6 parts listed here. We can't pull all 6 parts into the class assembly tab and generate that to laser cut. We actually need to use the Boolean tool to create a union between all 6 of these parts. So you can either click the parts individually to join them, or just drag and select all your parts. Once you do that, you should only have 1 part left, and hit the green check. And now we have our solid snowflake. Very last step in this process is to just rename part 1 with your first and last name. I'm just going to write Miss P example, and we should be good to move on.